Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's In the Inbox series. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I appreciate your patience as we got a new In the Inbox posted for you. It has been a very, very busy couple of weeks. High season is indeed here. Great new listings are coming on the market. My husband's bar has finally closed, so who knows? Maybe he'll start to appear in more videos or just enjoy an early retirement. Who knows, folks? But it has been a very busy last couple of weeks. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And for this question specifically, I had this question pop up about 4 times in 1 week. So I figured it was time to get this question answered. And it was asked by Christie. And she said, do I need to be there in person to close on my property? So I know in North America, it is traditional and customary for everybody to sit around the table on closing day, sign the papers, and then the buyer gets possession of the property. Here in Belize, it's different. Closing day is not when we all sit around a table, but it is going to be when, number one, the seller is paid the agreed upon amount by the escrow company and the closing company. So this is what happens on the closing date here. While we don't have a formal sit down, this transaction is happening. This is all done through a wire though. So there's no need to be here in person in Belize for this. Also, this is when the closing company is going to be registering the sale with the lands department. And the third thing that happens on closing date here in Belize is when the buyer gets possession of the property. Now, if you're buying a property that's under construction or pre-construction, you're not necessarily getting possession of it yet. However, that seller is going to be taking the property off the market, and you are going to be registered as the formal owner of that said condo or property. So with that being said, all of the work is actually being done before the close date. And from the time that you signed an OTP, an offer to purchase, or a PSA, a purchase and sales agreement, it's typically about 4 to 8 weeks until the close date. And what's happening during that 4 to 8 weeks is actually the most important part that gets us to the closing date. And during this time, the due diligence and the transfer of land or shares is being completed. So typically in your offer to purchase or in your purchase and sales agreement, there are going to be contingencies and due diligence factors of some sort. So for example, you're going to be getting a title check. The closing company will do that for you. They're going to make sure the property is free and clear of any liens. Typically, you're getting an inspection done if the property is finished, or perhaps you're doing a land survey. In addition to that, the closing company is going to be preparing a hard copy document for your wet signature and the seller's wet signature. These documents are all going to be sent via FedEx, and then the seller will return it via FedEx to Belize to the closing company. With the seller's package, they will typically include the hard copy title if the closing company does not already have that in their possession. So this does take a little bit of time because there is that physical mailing aspect. If there's a holiday, then it's going to take a little bit more time than anticipated, but we typically allot about 4 to 8 weeks for this process here. In addition to that, once the closing company receives the original documents, they'll release the funds to the seller and close. And ideally, this is going to be on the close date. However, I will tell you, delays happen. I've been in real estate here for a while, and I have seen delays happen for a variety of reasons, whether people are on vacation, an unexpected family emergency, they have to transfer funds from one account to another, and it hasn't landed in time. However, typically in your offer to purchase or your purchase and sales agreement, there is going to be an extension clause to some extent. Usually it's anywhere from 14 to 30 days because we do understand that delays happen. So with that, I would not plan to be down here on the closing date. In fact, I would plan to wait until the closing date happens, especially if you're planning to use your property. We have had some circumstances where the buyer is planning to be down here for closing and is anticipating staying in their property. However, there was a delay in the close. And if the property is not closed, you're not going to be able to stay in your property. So just be aware of that and just make sure you're being patient. This is going to be a great introduction to doing business in Belize and understanding that things take time. However, I will tell you, many closing companies and attorneys are working very diligently to ensure that we make it on time for closing. With that being said, I have an entire guide about what the closing process looks like. please do reach out to me for that. Email is the best way to get in contact with us. info@lunarealtybelize.com, info@lunarealtybelize.com. We will get this over to you. It is really important for you to understand the closing process, especially if you are coming in from the buyer's perspective, and to know what is going to be expected from you during that time. However, I will tell you that your physical presence here in Belize is not a requirement. And in fact, wait until after closing to ensure you can stay in your property if that's something that's important to you. All right, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to this session of In the Inbox, and we look forward to seeing you for the next one. Bye-bye.